You know the law. A headcrab jumps. It attaches. The body changes. And a few minutes later, something that used to be human is dragging itself through the dark. But here is the question Half-Life never fully answers. When the host starts moving again, is the person still in there? Not alive in the normal sense, not free, not in control, but buried somewhere underneath the parasite, still hearing, still feeling, still surfacing in fragments. And if that is true, then the headcrab zombie is not just an enemy. It may be one of the worst fates in science fiction horror. Most lore videos talk about what a headcrab does to the body. But today, we are going one layer deeper. We are asking what it might feel like from the inside. What happens in the first few seconds after attachment? Does the host lose consciousness immediately? Does the parasite suppress the mind? Could the person return when the headcrab is resting? And when a zombie is set on fire, are those screams just biological noise, or is something human briefly leaking through? This is not confirmed canon. This is a grounded hypothesis, based on what we see in the games, the behavior of the infected, the sound design, and what a biological parasite would need to do to control a human body. The question is simple. Where does the person end? And where does the headcrab begin? First, we need to treat the headcrab as what it appears to be. Not a robot, not a simple monster, a parasite. That matters. A machine could maintain perfect control every second. A machine could switch a body on and off with clean precision. But a biological parasite has limits. It needs energy. It reacts to pain. It can panic. It can rest. It may sleep. It likely has instincts rather than perfect strategy. And once attached to a human host, it has a control problem. The headcrab cannot move the body by magic. It needs to interfere with the host's nervous system. It needs the legs to walk, the arms to grab, the spine to balance, the lungs to breathe, and the throat to produce whatever sounds come out of the infected body. So the human body is not just dead material. It is still an active biological system. And if the body is still active, the brain may not be completely irrelevant. That is where the horror begins. The first stage would be pure panic. The headcrab attacks the head and face. From the host's perspective, the world would vanish almost instantly. Vision goes first, not like closing your eyes calmly, more like having the world physically taken away. Darkness, pressure, motion, weight, and the sudden inability to understand where the threat ends and your own body begins. Then sound changes. Everything becomes muffled, distant, internal. You may hear your own breathing louder than the room around you. You may hear hands hitting the floor, people shouting, boots moving, alarms in the background, but all of it filtered through panic and obstruction. Then speech starts to fail. That may be the most frightening part. Before the headcrab takes your body, it takes your ability to communicate. You cannot explain that you are still conscious. You cannot tell anyone what you feel. You cannot say whether you can breathe. You cannot tell someone to pull it off. You cannot even prove that you are still you. The victim's last clear human action may be reaching up, trying to tear the thing away, while their own nervous system starts receiving signals that do not belong to them. For the infected body to move, the headcrab must override the host. The simplest explanation is neural hijack. It attaches near the skull, takes control through the head and nervous system, and begins forcing movement through the body's existing motor pathways. That means the host may feel their limbs moving without permission. Not instantly at first. Maybe spasms, twitches, failed attempts to resist, hands clawing at the floor, knees dragging. The body trying to stand while the person inside is still trying to understand what has happened. This is different from becoming unconscious. This is worse. Because the host may not feel like they have become a monster. They may feel like they are being worn by one. Their body becomes a vehicle. Their muscles become cables. Their lungs become bellows. Their throat becomes a broken instrument. Their hands become tools for attack. And the person inside, if they are still present at all, is pushed out of the command chain. They are no longer the driver. They are cargo. So what happens to the mind? There are three possibilities. The first is the merciful version. The host dies quickly, or the brain loses higher consciousness soon after infection. The body remains alive in a technical sense, but the person is gone. The zombie is only a parasite using biological machinery. That is horrible, but at least the victim is not trapped inside it. The second possibility is the worst version. The host remains fully aware the whole time. They can feel the movement, the pain, the hunger, the violence, but they cannot stop any of it. They are locked inside their own body while something else uses it. That is the nightmare version. But the third possibility is the most interesting. Fragmented consciousness. Not fully awake, not fully gone. Blackouts, dreamlike flashes, sensory fragments, pain without context, movement without control, moments of awareness separated by long gaps of nothing. The host may not experience infection as one continuous line. It may feel more like waking up inside a nightmare again and again, each time with less understanding, less control, and less of the original person left intact. That is the theory this episode is built around. Not full consciousness, not total death. Fragmented awareness. This is where the idle behavior of headcrab zombies becomes important. In the games, zombies are not always actively hunting. Sometimes they are slumped. Sometimes they are standing still. Sometimes they wait in dark rooms until disturbed. From a gameplay perspective, that is enemy behavior. But from a biological perspective, it suggests something else. The headcrab may not maintain full active control at all times. It is an organism. It likely has energy demands. It may conserve effort when the host is not hunting, feeding, or responding to a threat. It may enter a lower control state, like an animal resting while still attached to its prey. And if the parasite's control weakens when it rests, even slightly, that raises a disturbing possibility. That may be when the host comes back. Not enough to stand up. Not enough to speak properly. Not enough to tear the parasite off. Just enough to become aware. Imagine that. The zombie slumps in a maintenance room. The corridor is silent. The parasite is still. The body is breathing, but barely. No target. No movement. No active hunting. And somewhere underneath the parasite's control, the human mind begins to surface. For a few seconds, maybe a minute, maybe longer, the host returns. But they do not wake up safe. They wake up inside a ruined body. What would that moment feel like? First, confusion. No normal vision. Maybe no vision at all. Only pressure, darkness, and distorted sensory input. Then, the body. It feels wrong. The limbs do not map correctly. The hands may not feel like hands. The jaw, throat, spine, chest, and muscles may all feel altered, damaged, or distant. The body is no longer arranged around human comfort. It has been repurposed. Then memory returns in fragments. A hallway, a scream, something on the face, hands trying to pull it away, falling, pain, darkness. Then the worst memories, movement, a door opening, someone shouting, the body lunging, the sound of your own voice, but wrong. And then the realization. You are not dead. You are still inside it. But the moment the host panics, the body reacts. Heart rate rises. Muscles tense. The host tries to move. Maybe they try to scream. Maybe some buried survival response fights the parasite. And that panic may be exactly what wakes the headcrab. The parasite reasserts control. The body twitches. The limbs lock. The throat tightens. The remaining human awareness is pushed down again. The host does not escape. They disappear until the next quiet moment. That is the most disturbing version of the headcrab. Not constant awareness, intermittent awareness. The victim does not suffer once. They keep coming back to the nightmare. Then there are the sounds. Headcrab zombies vocalize. Some of that could be simple biological noise. Damaged lungs, forced breathing, a throat being used by a body that no longer moves normally. The parasite may not be trying to speak. It may simply be pushing air through human equipment. But the disturbing question is this: why does it still sound human? A headcrab does not need a human voice to hunt. It does not need language. It does not need grief. It does not need pain in the way humans express it. So when the infected produce sounds that resemble suffering, panic, or distorted speech, it raises a possibility. Maybe not every sound belongs entirely to the parasite. Maybe some of it is the host. Not speaking clearly, not forming sentences intentionally, not fully in control, but leaking through. The body is still human enough to produce human distress. The lungs are human. The throat is human. The nervous system was human. The fear response may still be human. So the voice may be a blend. Parasite control forcing movement through a damaged body, while fragments of the person underneath bleed into the sound. Not speech. A leak. This becomes even more interesting when we talk about the burning screams. In Half-Life 2, some zombie audio, especially when reversed, has long been interpreted by fans as sounding like human cries for help. Phrases like "help me" or desperate panic buried inside the distorted audio. Now, we have to be careful. That does not prove the host is fully conscious. It does not prove a clean canon answer. But it does support a very dark interpretation. The host may still be somewhere underneath. And fire may be one of the moments where that buried consciousness gets closest to the surface. Because when a headcrab zombie is burning, the system is breaking down. The host body is in extreme distress. The parasite is also in extreme distress. The headcrab is no longer calmly directing the body. It is panicking, reacting, fighting for survival. That may create a disconnect. The parasite's control fractures. The host body is overwhelmed by pain. The parasite is overwhelmed by pain. The clean relationship between controller and controlled starts to fail. And in that failure, something human may escape through the cracks. The scream may not be just the parasite. It may be the host surfacing violently, not waking up peacefully, like in the quiet, idle moments, but being dragged back into awareness by fire, shock, and total system failure. For a few seconds, the person inside may have the clearest awareness they have had since infection began. And that awareness would not be mercy. It would be horror. They realize what they are. They realize they are burning. They realize they are still trapped. They try to scream for help. But the only thing that comes out is a distorted noise from a body that no longer belongs to them. That makes the burning zombie sounds much worse, because the most human moment may not happen when the victim is saved. It may happen when the parasite is dying. If the host returns in fragments, the body would not feel normal. The parasite is not preserving a person. It is preserving utility. It needs the body to move, attack, respond, and survive long enough to spread the infection. It does not care about comfort. It does not care about pain. It does not care if the original person is sane. So the host's bodily experience would be broken. Pressure in the skull, distorted breathing, muffled sound, wrong limb position, pain signals scrambled or suppressed, forced movement, hunger that may not belong to the human mind, panic without control, a body map that no longer matches reality. In neurological terms, that is terrifying. Your brain understands your body through constant feedback. Where your hands are, how your legs are positioned, whether you are standing, falling, turning, breathing, or speaking. But a headcrab host may experience a body that no longer reports correctly. It moves without consent. It reacts to things you did not choose. It makes sounds you did not intend. It attacks what you may still recognize as people. The horror is not just pain. It is ownership. The body is still yours, but you are no longer allowed to use it. So, are headcrab victims still conscious? The honest answer is that Half-Life does not give us a clean, confirmed answer. But based on the behavior, the sounds, the biology, and the way the host body remains active, the most disturbing possibility is not simple death or full awareness. It is something in between. The host may exist in fragments, suppressed under parasite control most of the time, lost in blackout, pain, dreamlike confusion, or neurological static. But under certain conditions, that control may weaken. When the headcrab rests, when the body is idle, when the parasite is injured, when it burns, when the control system fractures. Those may be the moments when the human underneath returns. Not enough to escape, not enough to speak clearly, not enough to be saved, just enough to know. And that changes how you look at every headcrab zombie. A slumped, infected body in a dark corridor may not just be waiting for the player. It may be resting, and somewhere underneath, for a few seconds, the host may be awake. The scariest version of the headcrab is not the one that kills you. It is the one that leaves enough of you behind to understand what has happened. So next time you see a zombie standing silent in the dark, ask yourself one question. Is the headcrab asleep? Or is the host awake?